talk about the lending program, both the direct loan program, the guarantee loan programs that's available through the agencies, the micro loan program, and the lending portion is on both sides, both with USDA rural development as well as with USDA farm service agency. And one of the really large areas now, and areas that are talked about very frequently in a very diverse manner, is with natural resources conservation services. Natural resource conservation services has a lot of different programs, and during my lifetime, with my experience in this area, as well as my experience being a farmer for 20 years, I think that NRCS, formerly known as the ASCS office, probably has more program areas that can be beneficial to landowners and to farmers I have seen. The other part of that, they have a lot more diversity with their programs, how they're implementing. Diversity is the implementation aspect of the programs to communities with an intent, again, to address certain areas that was a part of the American Rescue Plan and a lot of the disparities that exist in a lot of our communities. I will say that this is not an area that is recognized only by our organization, Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation. It's an area that has been recognized by USDA across the board. That there are major disparities that exist for various reasons. Those disparities exist, and the legislation as well as administrative that have been put in place is with the intent to address those disparities in a manner where people who have been underserved and those who have been unserved can receive the benefit of the program. So again, there's a lot we'll have to talk about. There's a lot we will engage in from a discussion perspective, and we really want everyone else to be equally as engaged with both questions to make sure that we get the answers that you need to receive out. And if it's not answers that you're looking for that's going to be necessarily directly beneficial for you, then it will be directly beneficial that you may be an advocate and that you can provide the information to others. One last quick point, and we will talk about this more in detail. It does have to do with the inflation, the 22007. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act, again, is what it's called, but it's also called as a sub-point to that, access to financial assistance for discrimination. So we'll have some discussions on that, and hopefully we'll get some feedback and questions from the audience, things that are being implemented, and I will definitely come back and have some statements to make in reference to that particular area down, both the legislation itself under the IRA, as well as how it is being rolled out. And the Secretary of Agriculture announced that on July the 7th. That was the date of startup for the program. So the application process is now open. I'm going to stop at this point now. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jamie Williams, who is also with the organization with Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation, and she'll be the facilitator from here, Ms. Williams.
Good afternoon, each and every one of you all. Thank you again for coming. I spoke with most of you, and certainly glad to have you all to accept the invitation. I'm going to go through what whom we're going to speak, and if there is any questions, then we ask that you hold them until they're finished. So we're going to have natural resource and conservation services, equity and equality opportunities in the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, as Dr. King just spoke of, and the American Rescue Plan, ARP. So we're gonna ask Stephen Morris to speak first.
Everybody hear me? Nice.
Push.
Is it on? All right, there we go. Now you such fancy equipment. All right, but so she said, my name is Stephen Morris, the district conservationist here in Fayette County, Tennessee. Somerville is our county seat. With me today, I have our soil conservationist Ray Taylor, Isaiah Smith, Derek Brasher, and Derek is actually going to cover our easement sections, but today I'm just going to talk about our financial assistance programs, EQIP and CSP, and the effect we have for IRA. So here in Fayette County is a heavily agriculturally populated county. In our county alone, just this year through financial assistance, we were able to assist over 15,000 acres in conservation that was actually awarded financial assistance, grand totaling about $4 million in 2023. I say that number because over $2 million of that was granted to us through our IRA funding. So IRA coming through NRC, this is going to be a big thing here in the future. This is our first year implementing our IRA. We only did around $3 million in EQIP and another, I would say, actually it's $3 million in CSP and another $1.5 million in EQIP for Tennessee this year. But once next year starts, right now we're looking at around $21 million of extra funding on top of our initial farm bill allocation. So we'll have about $21 million in EQIP funds from IRA next year, and our CSP funds will increase as well. So in the eyes of conservation, this is a good time because we accept applications and request for funding year round. So when our funding opportunities come up now, we'll have more money. I'll say this year in Fayette County, you know, if you applied this year, it was a great chance that you got in just due to the influx of money that we had. So we're going to be outreaching this year. So just to go into each program more specifically, EQIP is our environmental quality incentive program. And with EQIP, we basically come out, you come into the office and say you have a wash on your farm, or you come into the office and you need some help with your livestock production. We'll come out and make what we call a field visit. It starts off as technical assistance. We're just coming out to, see what resource concerns you have, see what you have on your farm, and see what we can help you with. From that point, we'll take it to the application phase. Like I said, we take applications year round. Once we have an application, we have ranking periods. Our ranking periods historically in Tennessee have ran from November is usually our sign-up cutoff date for that ranking period, and we fund around February to March. I know a lot of people say there's 3 months in between time from my sign-up date or the sign-up cutoff date, but in that time, that's when we're going to be doing our field visits, our conservation planning. Conservation planning for a single person could take up to a week, just due to the fact that we have to come out to your field, see what you want to do. Our number one, I guess we say step to planning is, what is the client's objective? I mean, I can push cover crop, no-till, but if you're producing and not interested in doing it, there's no reason for us to waste both of our time. So client objective is a big deal. So once we come out, we understand what you want to do, then we can look into this EQIP program, Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and just kind of see what we have to offer that can help address your resource concerns. Your livestock, we do anything from heavy use areas around your watering facilities. We also pay for watering facilities, along with that supporting practices that you'll need, pipeline to get the water to your watering facilities. Cross fencing to implement prescribed grazing. On the row crop side or produce side, we'll do micro irrigation in our produce side, high tunnels for urban and small scale agriculture. That's something new that's coming along, but it's not new. It's something that our chief, Mr. Ted Cosby, is putting more emphasis on this year. well, in his term. So high tunnels, micro irrigation, that's more on the urban side and produce side. If you get into our bigger, I guess you'd say, commercial producers, you're looking at cover crop. And we do a lot of structures here in Fayette County. Our ground is not as rolling, but we do have a lot of washes in the field. We do a lot of sediment basins, do some terraces, and do a lot of grade stabilization projects where we come in and just kind of put something to that wash to kind of stop it where it is, stop it from getting worse. So all those practices are accomplished through EQIP. We look at EQIP as, as a program, as if I came out to your farm, we got a problem, we're looking to fix it, we're gonna go into EQIP and figure out how to fix it. The CSP program is something different. We consider the CSP program as somebody who's already a steward of the land. Conservation Stewardship Program is what the acronym actually stands for. And with Conservation Stewardship Program, it's a 5-year program where we come in, we've already identified your operation. We say, hey, you don't have a specific issue to fix, but this is where we're looking at your objectives and where you want to go, because every farmer I've met always thinks that they can do better and know there's a better way to do it, just, they don't know how to accomplish it. So we'll take the practices that you're doing and we apply enhancements. So we say if you're doing crop rotation, if you're on a cotton and corn, soybean crop rotation, we'll come in and enhance it and get you to switch out your cover crops to giving you like a 5 cover crop rotation. And with that, it diversifies the organisms in the soil, better soil health, just things that, can easily be accomplished through minor adjustments or enhancements to your property. So with CSP, that's, like I said, it's a 5-year program, and that program offers an annual payment for those 5 years for the enhancements that you do. There's always going to be a base payment. So you get $300 in Tennessee, or in the national program. Actually, there are 9 resource concerns that we consider national resource concerns. If those resource concerns are already being met with the operations you're doing on your farm, you'll receive $300 per year per resource concern. If you have cropland, you receive $7.50 an acre per acre of cropland. If there's pasture, that payment is $5.50, and forestry is 50-cent payment in CSP. So that'll be your base payment, your resource concerns payment, and your acre payment. That's what you're going to get every year before you do any enhancements. And then once you bring in the enhancements, they have a wide variety of pricing, just like our EQIP. We're based off a regional cost share list, so that price is decided way above me, and we just implement it here in our county. Pretty much that is all about our CSP program, and now I want to have Derek speak about easement. You can have this seat right here, Derek.
Let's hit the button.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. My name is Derek Grasham. I work with the state of Tennessee NRCS, and I'm the easement team leader here in Tennessee. And so, Stephen was talking about a few of the programs that NRCS has to offer, EQIP and CSP. Another one of those is ACEP. And what is ACEP? It's our agricultural conservation easement program. There's 2 types of easements that come on and fall under that. There is ALE, which is our agricultural land easements, and then there's WRE, which is our wetland reserve easements. Now, some folks maybe use the term WRP, but that used to be prior to 2014. It was the wetland reserve program. In the 14 Farm Bill, it turned into ACEP. Some folks may be familiar with the term GRP, Grasslands Reserve Program. I could bore you to death about that. But what it is they roll those 2 in under an easement, one easement acronym, which is ACEP, Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. So I'll talk a little bit about ALEs, and then I'll move on to WREs. Excuse me. Got an alien call that just will not go away. So ALEs in Tennessee, and nationwide, the agricultural land easements. So one of the special caveats with that is that, you have to have a sponsoring entity. It's for unique and prime farming. So it's for those urban areas, highly dense areas where something off of that farmland there is unique. Just for example, here in Tennessee, around Knox County, there's a dairy farm, a family dairy farm that's been there for generation and a few generations. And so as we have that sprawl from urban areas and housing development and things of that nature, we don't want those unique and prime farmlands to go away. So what can we do? Well, one of the things that we do is there's a sponsoring entity like Land Trust for Tennessee, like y'all, who would look into sponsoring and ensuring that the plan that y'all and that the owner and operator and RCS come up with, they look out after, monitor that from year to year, and then provide those reports back in RCS. So that's another way to protect that unique and prime farmland. The special character of that is that you gotta have a sponsoring entity there, and so you've got multiple partners there that's investing money into that farmland. So the one that I'm more familiar with anyways, and mainly because we just have more of those around. We've got somewhere close to 60,000 acres in Tennessee, 370 some odd easements, and that number fluctuates as Mike provides the easements that close. But as Dr. King was talking a little bit, and if we think about historically underserved and potential outreach, this is great. This format, this setting is great. I think it's great to have that open table discussion. And then I know there's some folks online. We got some pamphlets of information. We'd be glad to get that to anybody that emails. We'd be glad to get that information about our agricultural land easements or wetland reserve easements. But the biggest thing that we've seen is getting out, talking with farmers, the outreach, and then successfully implementing a wetland reserve easement. And then the word of mouth of that farmer, it goes so far. It really does. That's some of the best outreaches when that farmer talks to this farmer, and they just get together, and it snowballs, right? The toughest thing is getting into that area, right? Once you get into that area, things change, right? But boy, just cracking the armor, right? Getting a chink in the armor, getting in, and developing that trust and building that relationship with those individuals. And so the wetland reserve easements, it's not a short process. So CSP and EQIP, it can be a lengthy process, but it's supposed to be a shorter process in getting that conservation on the ground. So when we talk about A7WREs, there's two types of easements out there that's RCS offers. That's a 30-year and a perpetual here in Tennessee. Some of you, if you're listening from other states, could be, some state laws prohibit 99 years being the maximum, but Tennessee does not. So here in Tennessee, it's perpetual easement. And those are the two types. So when you think about conservation, getting that on the ground, wow, an easement's a great way. You talk about perpetual conservation on the easement landscape, and what is that wetland reserve easement for? Well, eons ago, right, when we came over, we put levees up, we dug canals, we channelized river systems, we put in drainage tile, all so that we could produce a product, on our farm ground. As urban sprawl has continued, and as flooding continues to be a problem, right? As we put in open impervious, great example, this building, we gotta have it, it's part of our infrastructure, but as we do that, we create a lot of impervious area, a lot of runoff. And so, though what we've seen in the last few decades is rain events, is flooding, natural disasters on an intense level. And so what the wetland reserve program does is, hey, maybe there's farmers out there that have farm ground that 1 in 2 years it floods out, they lose a crop. You know, maybe their farm insurance, if they can't get farm insurance, maybe they're on the wrong side of the levee. So what this does is it takes that and it reverts it back to the wetland functions and values. Everybody knows the National Food Security Act, Manual Food Security Act. Well, prior to 85, you know, us as farmers, I'm gonna include myself in there. We could go out, we could clear wetlands, we could drain it, we could farm. We took away a lot of those functions and values, those wetlands and ecosystems, very important values. So what this program does is it takes it back and says, hey, you had that Food Security Act, we put that in there, the legislation passed 85. If you're gonna clear the ground, you've got to get that cleared through Stephen over here. You know, they'll put that in through FSA, Farm Service Agency will work with NRCS, and they'll do a wetland determination. If it's a wetland, can't clear it. You know, you violate, you can't be a farm bill participant and violate, and continue that violation. So what we do is we, that wetland reserve easement takes and stores it back to those wetland functions and values, introduces that back into the floodplain, takes the vegas down, fills those ditches back in that we dug to drain it, takes those tile back out, and then we get those qualities and those functions and values back to that wetland. So, and then the great thing, right, that everybody's interested in, that farmer gets paid for that. Land's still theirs. NRCS, United States, just puts an easement upon that piece of ground there, and then the taxpayers get to see those benefits. Reduces that floodplain, it reintroduces that, reduces flooding across the landscape, you know, on the minute level, right? I mean, you know, but farmers see those benefits and it helps the adjacent farmers out, you know, and they get to see those benefits. And they get paid for it, right? So that land, they get a payment depending on where we're at. Like Stephen, I can't tell you exactly what that payment would be, but what I can tell you is that it's 95% of what the appraised value would be. So pretty much the value of what that land would be is what the landowner would get paid. So very good program. Fits that criteria. Someone's got a piece of ground out there that they're struggling to get crops in year out. It's a very good program for that. And be glad to speak with anybody, you know, about it. Very passionate, I'm passionate. Most everybody that deals with it is on easements and wetlands and the functions and values of them. It's to me, it's one of the best conservation tools we got. You know, I'm biased, right? I'm on his staff. So, but once you talk about conservation, it's perpetual conservation. So, I probably went over. I apologize, Steve. I went over any on my talking, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're gonna have Farm Service Agency with IRA and ARPA, Resource Opportunity, USDA, FSA. And we're gonna have Ms. Joyce Murphy here, Air Property, Micro Urban Farming. Ms. Murphy.
Good evening, everybody. I need to hit the mic. Good evening. I am Joyce Murphy. I work with Farm Service Agency, Somerville, Tennessee, farm loan officer. I got 30 years. I'm a graduate of the Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. Just a little bit about myself. Again, Dr. King has already discussed IRA and American Rescue Plan Act. I don't know what else to say about it because he covered it all, 22006 as well as 22007 as it relates to IRA. When it comes to the air property, we have been given directions on it. However, there has been no direct information sent down from the state office. Micro urban farming, I'm assuming that's micro loans. And what a micro loan is to us to help those that are micro urban farming is $50,000 or less. If you need more than $50,000, you can go to our regular direct lending program, which is $400,000. That loan can be used to purchase equipment, put in your row crop, or livestock. It can be termed out for 7 years. The interest rate as of this month is 4.5%. The interest rate is fixed. Again, I can talk all day long, and one of the things that I like to do is ask the audience, what do you want to know about FSA? When it comes to American Rescue Plan Act 22006, it was repealed, and now it is OURA, which is 22007, which under that OURA program, it covers many different aspects that has gone out to our customers, such as the extraordinary measures, those customers that may be distressed, and also those customers who may have felt like they've been discriminated in the past. So OURA covers all of that. And it has been sent out to all of our customers that have loans on our books. We do guaranteed loan lending. Guaranteed loan lending, you can get a 90% guarantee or a 95% guarantee at the bank of your choice, as long as they are participating and they are a guaranteed lender with FSA and has been approved. I'm not for sure as to how much you all want me to go into details about American Rescue Plan Act, which no longer exists, or OURA as to what you need to do. There is a process put in place, and you can visit www.farmers.gov. And if you have taken an extraordinary measure, I feel like I'm talking to somebody, but I don't really see a whole lot of people. But I think there's an audience out here online. Yeah. You can go to www.farmers.gov, and it will give you everything that you need to do as far as inputting your extraordinary measures. If you are experiencing short cash flow, it will tell you what you need to do in order to input that information. The information on the discrimination is just been sent out on July the 11th, it came out that day. So the information is very new as to how to file. But again, if you go to www.farmers.gov, you will receive all of that information as to how to apply for any of those programs that's under OURA 22007. Again, I don't know how much I can talk about, because I sit here and talk 2 hours if need be. Micro loan lending, as I stated, $50,000. You can use that to purchase real estate. If by chance you can find property that's $50,000 or less, you can use it to purchase equipment or livestock. Our direct loan lending, again, is $400,000. The term limit is 7 years, up to 7 years. The interest rate is 4.5% for this month. We also have what's called direct farm ownership loan. Direct farm ownership loan is a loan that you can use to purchase real estate. It also can be termed out up to 40 years. So we can term that loan out up to 40 years. The interest rate as of this month is 4.875. It is fixed at the time of closing. One of the things that a lot of our customers get confused, they go online and they see beginning farmers, and they call and ask, well, I see this property for sale, and I want to be able to take advantage of the beginning farmer lending. Just to explain what the beginning farmer is, you can come in and apply for a regular direct loan or a micro loan. But if you specifically tell me you want to purchase real estate, per our regulations, the first question that I will be asking you in order for you to be eligible is, have you been farming 3 years out of the last 10? That means we're in 2023. I can only go back to 2013. If you cannot show me documentation such as your tax return, that you have a Schedule F or income and expenses, then you're not going to be eligible for the farm ownership loan. So I know a lot of times we get on the internet and we read it, and that's one of the first major hiccups that I face with customers who is wanting to purchase real estate. I need you to keep in mind, in order to get a real estate loan from us that's termed out for 40 years, you must have been farming 3 years out of the last 10. One of the years can be substituted for a college degree with 16 hours of agriculture classes or managerial experience. To be very clear, you cannot say, I got a college degree and I was a manager. That only counts as 1 year. I still need 2 years, and it still have to go back to 2013. If you tell me, well, I farmed in 1998 per the regulations, you're not eligible to receive a farm ownership loan. We have, like I stated, the guarantee program. $6,000 may not be enough to purchase real estate, especially in the Fayette County and the Shelby County area. So there's a guarantee program that you can go to and you can get lending, and we'll do a 90% guarantee with the bank. They'll do anything over $600,000 that we cannot do. The lending cap that a borrower can have outstanding with FSA farm loan programs is $1.8 million. And that comes from a combination of all types of loan that we have, which includes our emergency loan. In order to get an emergency loan, that interest rate is set, is 3.75. It has to be a disaster declared by the Secretary of Agriculture. Then you can come in and apply for a emergency loan. That loan limit is $500,000. So when you combine all of our different types of lending, you can have $1.8 million outstanding. Another thing that I like to tell the customers when they come in and ask for a loan, if it's not a micro loan, and you are borrowing anything over $50,000, the regulations state I got to have 1.5, and this is the good part about it. When you come in and tell me you want a tractor, that tractor costs $75,000. I need some additional security. I need 1.5%. So therefore, I am going to ask you for additional security. It is the regulations. When you come to real estate, if your real estate does not appraise for 1.5, that means I need a half of the amount that you're borrowing. So if you're borrowing $600,000, I need $900,000 worth of real estate. If your real estate that you're wanting to purchase only appraised for $700,000, I'm $200,000 short. If you have a house out there, I am going to take a lien on it. I have to take a lien because the regulation states I have to have lack security for lack security. That means I need real estate for real estate. If it's equipment, I need equipment for equipment. However, if you do not have enough equipment out there and you do have a house, I am going to take your house because it is an asset. If you have farm vehicles, I am going to take your vehicle. So I need everybody to understand, if you get a loan that's over $50,000 per FSA regulations, I have to have 1.5. So whatever that you're borrowing, if you're borrowing $80,000, I need an additional $40,000, which makes I need $120,000 worth of security. And we have to take it by any means necessary because we're going to see your balance sheet. We know what you have unless you're holding out on us. But then we're going to do a lien search. That lien search will show us what you have as an asset. And I have to take it. At this time, I always like to say, are there any questions? So does anybody have any questions for me?
They're gonna vote it afterwards, and those are out there online. We're gonna wait until we all have spoken, and then we'll allow you to do so. Our next program is with USDA Rural Development. Thank you, Ms. First, yeah, I really appreciate that. RA and the Darrell Resources. Rural Development Agency Representative Brandon Orr, with housing, grant, and loan programs. The Latote Rural Small Town Community Grant and Loan Programs, for the 3 business grant and loan programs, and our last one, energy programs. Brandon, you got.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Brendan Orr. I'm the area director for rural development in West Tennessee. Cover all of our offices in West Tennessee and several counties this side of the river. So you mentioned the first bullet point there, the housing grant and loan programs. So we have a couple staple programs in the state of Tennessee that we manage through our offices, and that's a Section 502, which is a home purchase program geared primarily towards first-time home buyers. There are income guidelines, there are credit requirements, there's several different things that go into the application, but loan programs out there available to those who qualify to purchase essentially a first-time home, affordable rates and terms. We have the option to stretch the mortgage up to 33 and in some instances even 38 years on a fixed interest rate. We hold those loans in-house, so that is I'll say in-house, so that is a direct loan program, meaning that the loan comes directly from the federal government and it's held by the federal government. Your payments come back to rural development. And so in addition to that 502, we have another program that we refer to as the 504. The 504 is a home repair program. Section 504 home repairs are for very low income persons who own the home. Repairs are set aside for what we term decent, safe, and sanitary type repairs, so meaning new roof, new windows, bad floors, things like that. So in that 504 home repair program, there is a home loan at 1% up to $40,000 and a grant of up to $10,000. The grant, you must be over the age of 62 to qualify for, and as well as meet the income guidelines. But that program is heavily utilized all across West Tennessee. We stay extremely active in delivering those programs, both the 502 and the 504, all across our areas, all across West Tennessee and all of the whole state of Tennessee. Those programs have not, to be honest with you, have not really been impacted by ARP or IRA. They're routinely funded. They are available every year. We've delivered those programs for a long time, and have always had a strong portfolio and active in marketing and promoting those programs. And so, as I said, they've been around for a long time. We anticipate them staying around for a long time. But if you do think that that may be something that interests you, or you may know someone that you think that could benefit from those programs, the best thing to do is to reach out to your local office first. Get in touch with them, get in touch with a customer service representative there to get the application process started. I think the next bullet point was programs we have available for small towns. And so we have a couple of staple programs there. We have a community facility loan and grant program, and we have a water and environmental program. The community facility loan and grant is just that. It is a loan and grant program available to municipalities and some qualifying nonprofits. A good example of that program would be the new fire station here in Somerville. We partnered with the town of Somerville to get that project up off the ground. I think they're almost complete with the project, as I understand. So I've really had no hiccups with it whatsoever. It's been a great program, but and so that's one example. What we do with those community facility loan and grants is essential community facilities, fire stations, police stations, city halls, libraries. We've done things like safe rooms, tornado shelters, whatever you want to call them. We also have limited grant funding available in that program, but a good example of that would be like if a community came to us for some assistance, like so they needed to buy a new police cruiser, something $100,000 or less. We can help partner maybe put $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 towards the purchase of that vehicle to help them get that new equipment. The second thing was the water and environmental program. So the water and environmental program, again, available to public bodies and some qualifying nonprofits, but it is water and sewer. We do water sewer loans all across the state of Tennessee. I've had numerous loans across this area. I'm sure everyone especially in West Tennessee, is aware of the Blue Oval City announcements and all the development going on there. So we've been in multiple talks, have multiple projects going on, trying to get water and sewer to the proposed development and developments that are currently on the way up with no reliable water and sewer around that area. So those programs, again, but essentially both of those programs have been nominally impacted by the ARP and the IRA fundings from the federal government. Those are both programs that we have delivered heavily across the state of Tennessee for years and years, and again, anticipate continuing to do so. But as far as increased funding or any special pots of money, they've been very nominal. Now, what we have had is some new initiatives from this administration for equitable access and delivery to underserved areas. And so we have some new indexes and some indicators that are available to us where we try to target programs in certain areas that have historically either been underserved or based off of current census data show that equitable program delivery has not been achieved historically. So those indicators and indexes do affect funding in some instances. So it may, maybe that affects the loan grant split, or maybe the amount of grant that's available in that certain area. But again, no huge influxes of money that have been available because of those ARP or IRA monies. Now, the next two programs, the business grant loan program and the energy programs, are really the two, and I'll kind of talk about them simultaneously because our third header, so we have our housing programs, we have our community programs, and we have our business programs and rural development that we deliver here in the state of Tennessee anyway, and out of our local offices. And so business programs doesn't encompass the energy programs, and so those programs did get some additional funding and some new programs that were created as a result of the ARP. One good example was the meat and poultry processing. As was mentioned previously, those programs have since been rescinded. So we had some activity, and we've done a few things across the state. I don't think I can give you any local examples here in West Tennessee, but those programs got up and started, they rescinded that act and took those funds away. So as far as new creation, the main thing with ARP and RA that was created was a huge additional influx of money in our Rural Energy for America program. And so we call it REAP. It's been around for years, but never with anything close to this amount of funding. And so the REAP programs are out there for qualifying ag producers to do energy efficiency upgrades. So like grain dryers or solar panels for pivots, or energy efficiency upgrades and say like a meat processing facility or something of that nature. So the program has grants, it has loans, but it's been around for years. Still the same guidelines. We still have to deliver it with the same eligibility requirements. There's just a little bit more funding available than there has been in years past. And the business programs in general, I think, so I can't touch on all of them. I think there's over 30, 40, something like that in individual programs under that business umbrella. But we do have a website. We have a USDA in general for rural development for nationwide website. We also have one for the state of Tennessee. So I would encourage you, if you have any interest in the overall umbrella of our business programs, or any of our programs for that matter, to go and seek that website out and kind of just hunt and check around, see if there's anything out there that you're interested in. And again, the best way to start moving forward with any of those programs is just to contact the local offices and try to get in touch with the specialists that can help you work your case, get your application started. And we'd be glad to come meet with you, anything you need to do to get the ball rolling. And that's all I've got today. I'll turn it back over. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I want to ask you regarding the $10,000 grant. Is that on the website, the application itself, or should you just go to the office?
So the application for the $10,000 grant. Mm-hmm. So no, ma'am, we don't put our applications out there. We do have local staff all across the state of Tennessee, and those staff are there to help folks, get their applications turned in. We have, as I'm sure you're aware, especially in these rural areas, it's not necessarily they don't have access to a printer, or they don't have. So we're more than happy to mail the applications out from our offices or anything. But I would still encourage them to contact our office.
Someone would be able to help them, assist them with the application.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any questions? Anyone out there online? Someone out here like us? Either our speakers just have anything to ask them?
So I want to start at this point where we can just engage in some discussions and more specifics in certain cases about the programs, particularly from how they're actually delivered to the public. One statement that was made by NRCS, and I hope the audience picked up on that, is that USDA realized that there are major discrepancies. So and areas for its program service delivery for a number of reasons. You know, there are a number of reasons when you look at the historic aspect of USDA and program service delivery to the hard to serve areas, and the underserved, you know, areas at present. But I want to start with rural development and say, you know, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So I want to start with R&D first. I know you mentioned that you have numerous programs, both on the loan side and on the grant program side, and you're right. There are so many programs in the context of USDA. One, knowing all the programs, and then the second, I guess from a challenge perspective, is understanding how to really access the programs and deal with all the eligibility requirements. One program you did not mention was a cooperative grant program. RD also has that program, and then two, on the eligibility requirement, and I'm giving reference particularly to the urban small farm communities. If someone wanted to create a cooperative, say 4 or 5 urban farmers, would they qualify for the program? One, are there requirements that has to be met in order for them to qualify for it? Is my first question regarding that. The next question I have regarding that is for eligibility on the cooperative grant program is the dollar amount. And the third is the planning grant. Do they make available planning grants for newly organized individuals or groups who want to create cooperatives? Again, you know, micro-urban farmers is really a growing market, you know, that exists now. And of course, diversity in program sometimes is necessary. And particularly when you talk about smaller scale type of operation, I mean, that's even smaller scale than what what we call small micro farms.
Okay, sure. So as I said, so you mentioned the cooperative grant program, and there's several others. We have several guarantee programs. There's a lot. So what I try to touch on are the programs that we deliver through our field offices in Tennessee.
Okay.
And so the cooperative grant program, we have some larger guarantee programs. We're partnering with banks. Most of those programs are delivered on a national level.
That's true.
They come out on funding notifications. The programs so the dollars come out on funding notifications where they make an announcement. There is from March 1st to June 30 deadline to apply. You apply through grants.gov for most of those programs. They're awarded and scored on a national level, and I have no control over who gets awarded, whose applications get accepted. They don't funnel those through our local offices. And so, yes, they are rural development programs, and yes, you'll find them on the website. But as far as a lot of knowledge base about the application processes and things, they don't run those through our local offices. So
I was thinking that in most states they have cooperative business at the state level. So not from the local office perspective, but both those for the co-op grant program, as well as the local business offices. If you were seeking to make application for a business loan, a direct business loan, if it was for the rural business, enterprise grant program, that those normally come through the state cooperative program. And the reason I ask that is this: you said that in most cases you want the local officer to work directly back with your customer base, and of course these are major resources for those underserved communities, or opportunities. Let me say it like that. There are major opportunities. So I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. In these cases where you're talking about these opportunities and possibly what should be an initiative, particularly with urban farms, creating cooperative efforts to access these type of resources for certain, for getting coolers, putting the coolers in, shared, it's more cost effective from a business perspective. So for those services, those type of resources, it's not local office delivered, so the customer bases, has to seek services directly from the state. How do they get the benefit?
And so it depends. So you kind of mentioned there, you brush over, you change the term just a little bit, and it's a different program altogether. So like the rural business enterprise grants, the RBAGs, the RBOGs, the opportunity grants, those are run through our local offices.
Okay.
So there are some, rural business cooperative programs that do funnel through our local offices.
Okay.
And so, yes, for RBAGs, RBOGs, you can throw, I mentioned earlier, you can throw acronyms super all over the place, but yes, those do run through our offices. Some of those programs, like the RBAGs, RBOGs, they do come with funding application periods and then funding announcement periods and then award periods. The REAPs, the energy assistance programs, they're more routinely available, open year-round type programs. They do close application deadlines on those sometimes, but depending on funding availability and that sort of thing. So yes, I guess the answer to that is yes. Some of those programs are available to our local offices. I think most of the main ones that you just mentioned in that conversation, both of those are available to our local offices. But you had also asked about technical assistance training, and so
the planning grant.
So there, again, I mean, it goes into what specific needs you have. We have planning grants for communities. So, I say the town of Somerville wanted to we want to do an overall evaluation of our wastewater system. Where do we start? We have planning grants for that, so they can pay an engineer to come in and survey the wastewater system. We have technical assistance training grants where we can take someone like ALCDC and pay a third party to come in and do a technical assistance training with either a region or a municipality individual, whatever the case may be, to come in and basically just inform them of the programs that are available and help them to make application or help them to put application documentation together to get it submitted to USDA.
And that's very, and that's why I asked that question. The planning process, ultimately, I'm assuming that when you come through the planning process and the technical assistance on the part of USDA, particularly with the more distressed communities, and where you have limited resources, so then you can apply for the planning grant, get the planning grant, receive the technical assistance from USDA, our third party, working with that grant, and the end result should be your business packet, the actual application completed packet, understanding what the needs are, what the benchmarks are, and then how, what the ultimate outcome is going to be, or the output, from that particular, process. So the end results, you end up with a package deal, you get the planning grant, and receive all the resources and technical support you need to apply for the type of grant program that's going to be beneficial from an overall community perspective on that grant side. The other one I want to give reference to is on the business opportunity grant. Of course, as I understand it, and let me know if I'm wrong, because I know your local resource agencies and your agency would know the details behind that. But the RBAR, the Real Business Opportunity Grant Program, we're talking about a grant program that enhances economic development, both job creation, business expansion, or new business startups. Now, what exactly do you all provide as far as the service delivery aspect of it in that? Working with, if it's a municipality, one, it qualifies that those funds can go to a municipality. The other is that, unless you change the regulation on it, the other is the nonprofits that can qualify for the same thing, for new business expansion.
Yeah, sure. So, as I mentioned, we have local staff all across the state. And so a good example of a rural business opportunity grant would be a business incubator that a community wanted to put in, where you can have, maybe some folks that if you had a new business wanting to come to town, you have a place to meet with them, or if you have somebody that needs to hotel some space for just that's someone traveling from out of town, needs a hotel and office space or something. Those are some examples that we've done across the state. Typically, those are either awarded to a municipality or a nonprofit in the form of an industrial development board or a chamber of commerce. And so you asked the question, what do we do to help deliver those programs? So we are not technically chamber members of all the chambers in our areas, but we do attend chamber meetings. We stay in close contact with all the local chambers, industrial development boards. And so in Tennessee, we have Tennessee ECD, which is Economic Community Development. So they're our state partners in those programs as well. So we stay in close contact with them, either monthly or quarterly routine meetings to discuss what's going on, where the need may be. And then, if there is a need, if someone does apply, if there's an application that's brought forward, we'll work directly with them, hand in hand, one-on-one, get the application filed and submitted.
Now, that's on the opportunity. Now, what about the enterprise grant? I think that one works a little bit different. The rural business enterprise grant, RFR and RFA.
They work a little different. Nominally different. I guess it's basically what they're sourced for. Our bogs typically are larger and our bags are smaller. I guess it's the main way that I can the way that I would break it down for you is the main difference.
And the same thing applies. That could be both with nonprofit, it could be municipalities also.
Basically the same.
Yeah, as long as there is an agreement that a particular business is going to locate there once if it's building facilities, improving facilities, and it's going to deal with job creation.
That's correct. And to be honest with you, our bag is more typical for what we do. We may do a couple of our bogs across the state, and there may be even a year where we don't do any, but typically the our bag is what we deliver more often because of the lower match requirement, the size of the projects that we get requested. It usually fits better.
I want to touch shortly back on the housing portion. What's the maximum dollar amount in Tennessee loan amount that could be made for its housing? I know in some of the other states, it's considerably more than what it used to be 10 years ago.
It is. It's changed, and I think we were conversating before the meeting, and I actually told you wrong, but it's $40,000 for the loan, 1% interest loan for a home repair.
Right. I mean the homeowner.
The home ownership,
right,
is specific to each county. So it just depends on which county that the home buyer is looking to purchase a home in. I believe it's based off of housing figures. I believe in this area, it would be somewhere around $325,000 or so. It's quite a bit. It's on up there.
Yeah, that is. I appreciate that. On the particular rural development, main thing, rural development has a lot of resources. Along with the housing program, grant program, they have grant programs in so many areas. They're from cooperatives to the small business side of it, and how it really can deliver in dealing with, again, what the disparities are in some of these. You mentioned you have indicators, that there are indicators where you look at where the greatest disparities are. And then you have, I'm assuming, benchmarks. How are you going to address that? What exactly is Tennessee doing from that perspective?
It depends on which program you're talking about. So me personally, with the staff that I work with across the state, we work in the water, sewer, and the community facility program. So I work that program most often, so I know the most about it. But when those programs, if we take a request where we need to run, let's say, a new water line for an area, those indexes are available to either you tap into special pots of money that are only available to those communities, and usually those special pots a lot of times are grant dollars, and it ends up being extra grant dollars that we can use to subsidize a water line through a distressed community or an underserved area or what have you.
Now, is that basically from the Inflation Reduction Act side, the American Rescue Plan? You all this is ongoing that you have?
So I would honestly qualify that more as an initiative through this administration, not ARP, IRP funding. Every administration that comes into office will have some initiative that they want addressed in rural areas across America. The Biden-Harris administration, the equity in the underserved areas was a huge push, and so they developed those indicators to tell us where those are, and then made some funding available for us for a resource to us to be able to help better serve those areas.
I want to go to NRCS now. I mean, that's one of my favorite organizations here. More resources. I think you've even said, you know what I'm saying, Representative, saying they have an abundance of resources, more than they have had in a long time, and even more to come as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. Are you targeting those resources to the areas where you have the greatest disparity?
So basically, Tennessee is a strike force state, is what we like to call it. So strike force state is a state that recognizes counties whose medium income is below the poverty line. So we do have strike force states where we were already using that initiative from 3 administrations ago. I believe it's been out a while. So we're basically just piggybacking off of those and looking at those areas. Memphis is not a strike force county, or Shelby County is not a strike force county, but we know that's where our urban ag is. So we're looking at our urban ag offices, you know, being placed in Shelby County and cities with a higher population, more food deserts. Our geospatial and GIS staff, they worked out a layer, what we call the food desert layer. So we know and can pinpoint exactly where those food deserts are. So participants applying for high tunnels and other produce or small scale operation conservation practices in a food desert area, they are targeting and awarding more points for those situations.
Roughly how many counties in Tennessee do you have in strike force?
Strike force county out of the 95. I know over here we only in West Tennessee, which I'm considering the 22 West Tennessee counties. I think around 5 or 6 of those are strike force counties. When it comes to that, also one of our historically underserved categories is a limited resource farmer as well. So even if you're not in a strike force county and you qualify as a limited resource farmer, that's somebody who's, you know, median income is below the poverty level as well. So even if you're not in a strike force county, you still can get targeted and receive extra points for your program ranking score.
Let's talk about that very briefly. One is that ranking and the points, and I had put notations on that for NRCS and ranking. And those categories, that's form 860, I think, is what FSA had. Is it 860 or 860 on certification in those areas?
That may be a farm program and not a farm loan.
It is a farm program form. You're right. Eight 840 certifications. So in ranking with the 848 form, is it important to have that 848 file, or should you submit that form on the certification where you get more points? One, if you're a veteran, if you're social disadvantaged, African American, in that area, beginning farmer. Those when you're filing an application for conservation services, it's important to really check those areas, all that apply.
Yes, sir. So as far as FSA side, we it is our sister agency, but we do our own, I guess, certification of our historically underserved customers. So like I say, we do it, all of our historically underserved categories, our self-certification may be audited, you know, that are subject to audit. So you consider yourself a beginning farmer, historically underserved farmer, socially disadvantaged, limited resource, veteran and beginning farmer. One thing about veteran farmers, before I move on, a veteran farmer in NRCS's eyes, or our agency eyes, is how we look at a veteran farmer as a beginning farmer that has recently been discharged. So in order to get our veteran farmer rancher status, you also have to qualify for a beginning farmer. And that just basically says that you've been farming for less than 10 consecutive years. So I just wanted to say that before we move on. But reporting that your status to FSA, that is important. because recently I'm on the Civil Rights Committee here in Tennessee. We've moved away from the census data as our main judgment or I guess you'd say measurement of our race and statistics out in the community. So we are using FSA data through our new Tableau dashboard. So I do recommend everybody, when you go into FSA, do not choose to put that, prefer not to answer. Just if we answered it, we'll get a realer picture of what our county actually looks like. But when that goes to FSA, that doesn't affect our side at all. When you come over there, we look at you as a new person. You do have to have farm service records, and that's just basically having a farm to track on. All the other things are determined over in our CS. When it comes to the ranking score, our ranking scores are strictly kind of based on our resource concerns. I know we do give extra points for, beginning farmers, limited resource farmers, social disadvantaged farmers, but those points, I guess, awarded, and they're, that's just that nudge to barely put you on top, but addressing the resource concerns and being open-minded is usually how you improve the ranking score with NRCS. So we have producers who come into our office, say if you want to sign up for cross fencing, that producer knows, I just need some fence. Well, if we put the fence out there, are you gonna close the gates? Are you willing to adapt prescribed grazing? Are you willing to replace and put a heavy use area around that muddy trough? There are a lot of producers and that choose not to do that, and that kind of comes back and hurts them on the ranking score. So if I'm gonna put a grazing plan or put cross fencing in there, and I have to, give you a negative points on your water facility, that's hurting you more than it's helping when it comes to our ranking score. Because like say, basing off the resource concern, we would call it livestock production and limitation. So with the cross fencing, you would increase it, but also with the, bad quality, quantity, distribution of water, you decreasing your score at the same time. So you're getting a push and pull effect.
I understand you give a reference to the soil nutrients and things of that nature, as well as the water and water management, cross fencing. What about the area when you start to talk of smart agriculture? Practices and points on that, and type of practices that really is being applied to what they're calling smart agricultural practices in conservation. Everything from, cover crops to, of course, rotated grazing, would be one. But one really is key when you're talking about ranching is dealing with permanent pasture bases and, a good grass space.
Yeah, so basically, bringing up climate smart agriculture, with all of these IRA funds that are coming down the pipeline, they are only to address climate smart practices. So with the, I think, $850 million that we saw in the nation, all of that went towards climate smart practices. So address anything to address carbon sequestration, greenhouse gases, things like that. That's what falls under our climate smart ag. As far as prescribed grazing cover crop, we know all those carbon sequestering, help greenhouse gases. But with that, with prescribed grazing, we have what we call supporting practices. So, I could, write you a contract or come out there and recommend prescribed grazing, but in that money, there's also a caveat to say, what practices do you need to accomplish that? So even though it's strictly based on IRA practices, we also have a place in there for supporting practices where to go with those. So say, let's just keep using prescribed grazing. You got fence, waterers, heavy use areas, all of that fall into it. When you get to the permanent pasture establishment, so one thing we look at and people ask a lot is about our permanent pasture establishment. So if a man came to me today, he has 10 cows and has 15 acres. He says, my grass is not coming. I need I need some more grass. I need to plant grass. Okay, he would have the negative pasture condition score. So we base all of our replantings off of the score, how we grade the pasture. pastor probably won't be doing that well, but I go out there, it's one pastor, and he has 10 cows, so I can't, as a conservationist, go to your place and say, hey, I'm gonna help you replant your grass, but you have nowhere to put your cows. Just because you put the seed out there, it has to have time to grow, so when we go in there and you asking, I mean, when we're asking or they're requesting pasture planting, we want it to make sense. We want it to be most advantageous for the government because we are a government agency. So just going out there and if we can establish a prescribed grazing system, say, you know, split your place up into 5-acre paddocks where you move in more frequently, or, you know, limit or get you to limit the herd for 45 days or whatever the optimum growth period of that grass is. You know, something to give our conservation practices a chance. So permanent grass planting is one of our main things we like to push. Cropland conversion. If you have a cropland field that they want to bring out of production and you know they want to put it into permanent grass, we're always looking at, you know, trying to help with those situations.
But I guess one thing is very, very key, and the reason I asked that question, that not being specifically stated, that where under the Inflation Reduction Act and the dollars, if you're gonna follow the dollars, then the dollars, you really have to look at smart agricultural practices and understand what smart agricultural practices are about. And of course, you know, in the areas where you have the greatest level of disparities in underserved communities, this is totally new. It has not been talked about before. So it's imperative that one, the information gets out, that's one side, and then on the other side, it get to those who don't really know and understand. These are the type of practices you have to be talking about if you're going to be eligible for this special money under the Inflation Reduction Act. So that I think is very key. My last point back with NRCS is on the numbers, farm numbers. All this money, and now we know where it is under IRA. Now we know where it is. It's not just conservation. It is conservation, but it is conservation, and the special dollars that are coming in a particular way. And I was reading that, and everything you see smart agriculture and then how these become priority. These are priority areas. So if you're not putting your plan together as it relates to these priority areas to get into this pot of money, then you're not. I won't say necessarily your ranking, but you may not be the first to get funded because you may run out of funds on the other side.
So as we all know, NRCS is a locally led agency. So the reason NRCS has access to private lands today is because we partner with conservation districts, right. Where we tag team it, and our state has what we call the state technical committee. Right. So at those levels here in Fayette County, we have what we call a local working group meeting. That meeting is open to the public. To everybody. It's held once a year. It has to be advertised for more than 30 days. So it's on onlinefarmers.gov if you ever want to look up your local working group, or just simply call your local office and they can tell you that meeting. So the priorities or the resource concerns that we're going to prioritize are decided in those meetings. So that's where that ranking score comes in. You know, here in Fayette County, we know what our priorities are. We know what resource concerns we have. We know what practices will help our producers the most. So, and when we go in that local working group meeting, we're going to look at our grazing producers who or cover crop. Somebody who has, we're going to look at wash cobs. But with the IRA and the new prioritization of climate smart resource concerns and practices, that's a state pot of money or a federal pot of money. It was wherever we want to look at it. So, just here in Fayette County, our local working group decided, as far as our local money, we went away from, or we didn't prioritize our climate smart practices because it was a national pot of money. You stand a better chance in the state pool getting funded. So when it comes to us, our nationals decides our resource concerns that are IRA specific. We have a form, and you can get that form from any one of your local offices. It has a list of our climate smart agriculture and forestry practices. It's 4 pages. It also explains how it benefits a producer. So, when you look at the resource concerns and ranking, it's not necessarily gonna be on that local or state technical committee. Those set practices have set resource concerns that they're gonna address, and they're gonna come out of that ranking pool first. So the old way of how we used to, more so lean, well, that way is still there. Our local working group, state technical committee, prioritize resource concerns for the state is still there, but for this new pot of money, IRA, we just need to raise more awareness on the resource concerns that they address more specifically, and not, I guess, so focus so much on what Tennessee in general, resource concerns and prioritize.
But you also have subcommittees that make recommendations back to the state technical committee, right?
Yes.
So those subcommittees in each category, okay.
And we, just here recently, our state conservationist, acting state conservationist, Kerry Honaker, announced today that we have formed urban ag and small scale subcommittee for the state technical committee, and it's headed by Arthur Hawkins, who is our assistant field operations.
This leads to my final point, the NRCS. Now, NRCS on the urban, now I'm coming to FSA, I got to go for FSA. On the urban farms, new market area, lots coming in on that. Smart farming is the other, same thing applies, on smart production practices and conservation practices. Farm numbers, out of all those resources, if you're in the urban area, you're just getting into that marketplace, new producers. And sometimes where you have air property as a barrier, or people are leasing air property and had not been farmed for a period of time, may not even have the farm number, ID number. Now, all these resources and how you can access those resources without that farm number, but you can't get it.
Can't miss.
Can't get it.
The first question on the NRCS application is, do you have Farm Service Agency records established? Every farm, NRCS employee from every state in the nation probably is gonna ask that question if they see a new person coming in the door. And the majority of them, for say here in Fayette County, if you don't, we're gonna walk you next door, because that's gonna block us from doing anything besides the technical assistance plan. So we can come out, we can tell you how to spend $300,000, but we can't give you any of it because you don't have records. So we do urge that you go see FSA first, or not even first, just go see them before you apply for the program.
Bottom line is, if you don't have a farm number, you can't access the resources. You can't access the resources, you can't get a contract. And on the urban farm side, and again, a growing market area, you have to have the actual farm number. And we find this in a lot of cases, in a lot of cases. I have some questions for FSA.
FSA farm loan.
Program.
As a point of clarity, this is FSA farm loan side, and I apologize. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right to give the presentation on the loan program. Let me just talk very briefly about that then, since you're not, okay, let's talk about, I want to talk about the farm program side with the Farm Service Agency. One, FSA has the abundance of resources when it comes down to both farm finance and the guarantee loan program side. I think the maximum on the farm finance side, now farm finance side on the guarantee program, that's what, $2+ million now in the guarantee?
Yes,
Two.
not 1.8.
1.8.
Loan lending, but that means you can get it by a combination of, you can get it through direct or guarantee or emergency. But when you reach that 1.8 and you are a borrower with us, there is no more lending that we can do for you because you have reached your loan.
So if an individual, and that's what, to be clear on, if you're doing business with one of your preferred lenders, the bank, and they're gonna use the loan guarantee program, say $40 million, okay? And they're getting this operation, $1 million, and then they have on the other side, they have a direct loan for $400,000, okay, on the operating side. So you have a layered area of direct and guarantee programs. And then on the capital investment side, with the direct loan, you have another $400,000. Okay, so now you're not at that limit. You got $1.8 million. You got 400 on capital loan. You got $400,000 on direct loan for operating with FSA, and of course, capping out on that side, you've now gone to the bank, preferred and a certified lender, and got another $1 million. So with that combination right there, that's it. That's the max that FSA can do. Anything else outside of that would be directed back with that. Bank would be back with the bank.
You can only do 1.8.
Right.
With us.
Combination of all those on the capital side, operational side, and the guarantee side. I mean, you got 1.8 million. Or they can go directly to the bank and get a combination. And this is what I'm asking now. Because we need a combination of capital side and operating side. Okay, what if, so you got 1.8 million on the capital side with the bank to buy land guaranteed. You got 1.8 million on the operating side that you can use for operating, get a 9% guarantee. Okay, so if the banker wanted to make a land purchase loan that meet all the eligibility criteria for $1.8 million, and they wanted to give an operating loan for $1 million to that farm operator, so you said they over the cap, you can't do it.
Let me go back and dissect your question that you gave.
Okay.
Farmer Brown comes in the office. He has loans on our book in the amount of, say, $600,000 for a farm ownership loan and $400,000 for annual operating. He owes us $1 million.
Right.
He can go to the bank, and if the bank said, well, we want to do a guaranteed loan in conjunction with FSA, I only have $800,000 left that I can loan him to approve, because my cap is 1.8. If the bank decides that they want to do anything other than bringing FSA in as a lender, they can loan as much as they want to loan. But as far as the guaranteed side, that he has gone to that preferred lender, standard eligible or certified, I can only do $800,000 because he had $1 million on our book. So
Okay, so if you have on the rec, you got $1 million, a combination of capital and operations, then you can only guarantee $800,000 back with the guarantee program.
correct.
Or they could just go and get 100% guarantee and they don't have anything with FSA, they can do $1.8 million, 90 to 95% guarantee.
Correct.
On the direct lending side, I mean guarantee lending side.
That's
Okay, I know you didn't talk very much about the air property. As I understand it from the 2018 Farm Bill, that particular piece of legislation on air property with lending would go back out to third parties that would actually do the lending, so they would make the money available to a third party source, CDF, Community Development Finance Institution, to my understanding. And y'all haven't gotten to listen to who those individuals are in Tennessee yet.
No, sir, we do not have that information, but what you're saying is absolutely correct. But as far as direct initiatives as to how we're gonna handle that in the office, if someone comes in and asks for lending for air property, we have not been provided clear instructions.
My other area, and I know because there's always a combination of partnership, both with NRCS and back with FSA. Take the where you have NRCS 90%, normally you can go to roughly 90% of cost share on your programs.
90% for historically underserved, and when we say 90%, if you go spend $100, that doesn't mean we're gonna give you $90. Our cost share rate is determined on a regional cost share scale. So here in Tennessee, it's Tennessee, Kentucky, and I would say Arkansas. I'm not sure about third state, but between Tennessee and Kentucky and our third state, we meet as states and determine a cost. So say cover crop, they've determined that cover crop costs around $103 to put in. And when we say put in, that's just not buy seeds. That's when we look at the practice, we look at paying somebody to do it. So we calculate fuel, equipment costs, seed costs, fertilizer, all of the components that we think it would take to implement cover crop. At that time, each state comes together in their region to decide, hey, this is what this is gonna cost. It's gonna cost $100. Just throwing it out there, say, for anybody to do it in all 3 states, $100, that's what it costs them to do. And then when we go to our cost share, we use that price for $100, and that's what we set our 90% on. So, the NRCS offers 75% general cost share rate of our regional cost share. From that, we can go up to 90% for our historically underserved categories, but it's our regional cost share. And even when I promote my programs, I rarely say 90% cost share. I just say we have cost assistance, because when we develop a contract, what we have on that contract is what we pay. So if we say it costs $100 and we cost share 90, but it costs you 75 to put in, we're gonna give you 90. But if we cost you 90 and it costs you 190 to put in, we're gonna give you 90. Yeah.
Let's come back to FSA, and again, I know we always say one USDA, you also have the conservation loan program. On the direct loan program, what is it, that a 7-year repayment period?
The conservation loan program, I have not done one of those loans in 30 years. But there is a program for the conservation loan program. I cannot give you a clear description of it, being that no one comes in and inquire about the conservation loan program. But it is a loan program that we do.
Right, and I don't wanna say, and you're right, sometimes people don't inquire, but they just don't know, they don't know or understand, and the importance and how you layer this type of resource. We talk about creating equity positions, well, this is directly one way to create equity when you start to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, American Rescue Plan, the part on the cost share, whenever you layer improvements, improvements on land with the cost share basis of it, if irrigation going in, which irrigated property is worth a lot more than what non-irrigated property is. And with the micro-urban farming, if you're putting more of the land into production, taking out undergrowth and things of that nature, then that's very crucial, with these micro, small scale farms. So it's very, very important that people know that your real property could be worth a third more than without a third more after applying conservation practices that could be very beneficial, soil nutrient practices of that nature, and then applying the conservation loan to that. So and that spread over that 7-year period of time. But that is one program, and it has definitely been underutilized by the communities where you have more disparity, particularly when you look at the minority community and underserved community. They have not used it historically. It has not been utilized as much. The other, I'm going to say this, and I will be almost at the end of my question before I come back to NRCS again, and what this big money is on conservation easements. Because the conservation easement there's a lot of, particularly when you talk about the comparable basis of conservation program benefits, looking at where you are now, where you want to be a little further down the line, and planning for that. Well, I'll say planning for a conservation program. And looking at the financial management after that, I want to talk some about that as well, those resources. But on the Farm Service Agency side, and I'm probably missing some, but I know on your program side, one thing that's very, very important for micro-urban farmers and anyone who's dealing with horticultural crops, those crops that's not where you can't get traditional type of insurance, is the NAP program, okay? So that's on the program side with Farm Service Agency. So mitigating risk is important whenever you're dealing with any type of business, but particularly when you're dealing with agriculture and a lot of factors that come into play with that. So you have the NAP program. The other one that's on the program side is a farm number. When they go in, FSA is the one that can provide that farm number. As NRCS said, they have all that extra money, but you can't get it if you don't have a farm number. So first assessment, anyone, if they're just getting into farming and they're going to rent land, they're going to be a urban farmer, whichever, find out if you have a farm number, get a farm number, apply for the conservation resource, resources that's actually out there. The other is commodity food assistance program. That's on your program side as well. Now, yeah, that's all on program. Now, the commodity food assistance, I can't go into all the details about that. They did an extension. They extended the deadline for sign up for the commodity food assistance program, but I would strongly encourage those individuals who have not received any information about the FSA commodity food assistance program, that you contact the FSA office about it, see if the deadline is passed. If not, you would need to sign up for it. There has been an attempt on the part of Farm Service Agency to address what those disparities are on the program side, because there was such a gap in the underserved community, those who did not benefit from CCAP, the commodity food assistance program, did not benefit from it. The payment, I mean, a very, very wide gap on that. So contact FSA office program side to ask about the commodity food assistance program. The other on that, when you have, she mentioned the emergency loan, and there are, if there is a disaster, if there's a disaster situation, and we have a lot of disasters right now. I mean, flooding and everything else. Some areas have already been declared disaster. You have the emergency loan program on one, but you also have the disaster payments. And of course, the disaster payments, anyone who may have experienced that, and you're looking at the resource that FSA has to provide, then that's the agency you go to for disaster payment assistance, is Farm Service Agency. A lot of resources, mitigating risk in one hand, and then of course when disasters do occur, that's the agency to actually go to.
Dr. I know you talked a lot about
Go ahead.
farm program.
Yeah.
However, farm loans, and just to piggyback on what my counterpart over there said about limited resource farm loan programs, we also have a limited resource loan as well, which means if you do not cash flow at the regular rates and terms, because we know now that the interest rates are going up, we have a limited interest rate of 5%. So if the interest rate goes up to 7%, once that customer comes in to make an application with us, we are able to go in and do a calculation, and maybe they can be a limited resource borrower, which is at 5%. We also require our customers as well to have a farm number, but all of it comes from the program side. Just to go back on what you said, the program side kind of gives out free money, and we don't. You have to make it back.
That's true. That is true.
Excuse me. Dr. Douglas? Oh, so,
I want to do this if we can, and I see we're about out of time. They told me I've actually, and my phone says it's time to hit the road. I guess it's telling me. Ms. Williams said I have 1 minute. Conservation easement. Can we do at least just 1 minute on this conservation easement program?
1 minute.
1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes, yeah.
You go quick and I'll go fast.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, yes, yeah. Well, the question is, one is on the conservation easement. Now, if one goes, you see, you have the 30-year, and then you have the permanent. Okay, so you have a time limit of 30 years on one. Is that different in the payment? I mean, what is the payment per acre average? Now, I'm just going to say for Tennessee, but it may vary from state to state. But what is the average per acre for the time limit, the 30-year limit?
So,
Max.
great question. For a 30-year, we pay, you can pay up to 75% of that appraised value.
Okay.
The kicker with that is that when we determine what the restoration looks like for that easement, or for that project there on that landscape, 25% of that must be paid by the landowner. So that's to say, hey, if we're gonna pay 75% of the appraised value, 25% of that restoration cost should come from the landowner. Now, that being said, it's not like they have to pull out their billfold, hand us 25% of whatever that restoration cost would be. What we do is we hold their 25% back from their payment and 75%.
Right,
That makes sense for the value of the land.
right.
And at the end of it, when the restoration is completed, if that 25% of our estimate was high, then we cut a check, give it back to the landowner. Let's say it was 20, we held 25,000. Their part for the 25% was only 20, we cut them a check for $5,000 back.
I just want to make sure, I hope our audience understands, you're looking at both the revenue receipt, what you're gonna receive in revenue on one side, because you got two different payments, 95% on one, 75% on the other. And also, in addition to that, you have conservation practices that has to be implemented on that easement, once you put it into the easement. So on the 75%, then those conservation practices being implemented, that 25% cost for implementation of that is on the producer side. And that was the reason for the question for
Sure.
FSA on the conservation loan program, importance of that. Just and saying, whenever you're dealing with conservation any program this thing, now the producer get that 75% all in one payment, say they gone to FSA, they got a loan approved for the other 25%, then they will put into that plan where they have program income of 75% of what the total cost is gonna be for this easement program.
So the great thing about what you just said, the 25%, that landowner does not have to come out of pocket. We just take that out of the 75% that they're gonna be paid. So they don't have to come up with that 25%. We can just hold that in their payment. Or withhold that from their 75% at the time of closing of that easement. So we just put a hold on those funds, they don't get paid that, and then at the time restoration is completed, then it comes out there, so they never have to come out of pocket for that money.
Okay, so you get 75% of what the total value is for the land,
That's right.
okay? And you hold 25% of that revenue
Of the estimated
of the estimated,
restoration costs.
yeah, of the estimated restoration cost. So that restoration cost, I'm gonna make sure we're getting our numbers here, right?
Sure.
So that restoration cost might be 25% of what that total payment would be, as far as when you write it up on your contract. And so until you meet those compliance requirements, then compliance means you get it fully executed. If your conservation plan is fully executed, you get 2/3 of the payment upfront. So I let you keep 25%, you give them 75%, you can get 75% of that total conservation easement contract, 75% of that.
Right, and I can give a quick example. So let's just say you had an easement go in, all right? At the time of closing, it's a 30-year easement, you're gonna be paid 75% of the appraised market value. That easement, its value was 100,000, let's just say it's appraised at 100,000. 75,000 is coming your way.
Right.
Okay, now, we're gonna withhold 25% of the restoration cost. Let's just say restoration cost was 10,000. Okay, so it's gonna cost 10,000 to restore that easement. We're gonna withhold 25% of the restoration cost, and we're gonna withhold $2,500 out of that 75,000.
Right.
We're gonna cut you a check at the time of closing, for 73 1/4, or 72 1/4, and then we're gonna withhold that other 25 in a fund over here. At the time of restoration being complete, probably a year or two later, just depends on what time of the year, kids are working well and if it's wet. So it's in the rainy season, so
Right.
we gotta wait to the driest point, which is typically right now into the fall. We do the restoration, we estimated at 10,000, we held back your 2,500. It only costs 9,000. So we take 9,000, we take 25% of that and then out, and then we cut you, the landowner, a check back for whatever's left over. Now, if it goes over, what landowners really don't like is if let's say our engineers made a mistake, and instead of $10,000, it costs $15,000. Then we have to go back to the landowner and say, we need that other 25% of the 5,000 we didn't hold out. So our engineers, we highly encourage them not to mess up. No, there isn't.
So in other words, whenever you deal with conservation easement, you really need to do a full financial analysis and looking at your cost factor side and not just your revenue income side of it. One other step further, and I'm only gonna mention this in closing, and we encourage everybody and the people understand this in conservation easement, you gotta get a 1099 for that paper that you receive. You're gonna get a 1099. So when you're going into a conservation easement program, you need to get with your accountant and understand what your tax liability is going to be, as well as your other cost factors, what that's going to be in order to be in full compliance on that conservation contract, that other 25%. My final point on that, and we'll talk more about this, do more work, type of sessions on it. The other thing, and I know it's not your responsibility to do that, but sometimes it's a statement to let them know, people know, but we're talking about, in a lot of cases, an underserved segment of the community, and also those where you have more disparities. So all the details should be known. You need to know you're gonna get a 1099, that's one, so you're gonna have a tax liability. Two, maintaining ownership of land where it can be used, where it can be used for hunting purposes. You can do leases there, you can hunt, get some idea of what hunting leases are going for, what that other revenue, the income part is going to be about. The other part I think is very relevant to that is also understanding your tax liability on your real estate taxes. If it's going to be in 30 years, you know how much taxes you got to pay on that land for the next 30 years. While it's in conservation easement. You won't be getting no annual rental income on an ongoing basis. That need to go into a reserve account. Ownership and control of the land on a compliance basis by NRCS had to be maintained by that landowner in that particular contract. The other is that now you can still sell the land if you want to. The other they need to understand, people need to understand, you can sell the land, you can do what you call novation, but it has to be a novation or contract transfer to the one, even if you're gonna deed it over to your children. If you're gonna deed it to your children or someone else, then as a part of the estate planning, then once that ownership transfer is over, you need to make sure that there's a novation or contract transfer to that new title ownership individual, that child or that family member, whichever. And of course, that gets into another thing, addressing, future barriers or potential barriers in the underserved of those communities where you have more disparities. So I just wanted to mention that. I know that's probably a little outside of what we should talk about more. The great program. There are a lot of resources, in the program, both under the IRA side as well as the American Rescue Plan side of it. And as they stated, they get a whole lot more money, and y'all are happy about it to target the program. But those things, from a financial management perspective, it's imperative that people know that. It's imperative that they know that, and then what all those liabilities are and what they have to deal with from a financial perspective. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ms. William, I'm gonna turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Green. And I just want to thank my USDA family here. It was a pleasure in meeting you.
Yes, thank you.
And also, you're gonna have a safe trip back,
Let them know we got some refreshments over there.
and we do have refreshments over there. So please take them on your way home. You get one snack.
Thanks. It's a wrap.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all. You all show up
Thank you, guys.
here, show that.
We will, this will be aired again. We're gonna put this to our website.
Awesome job.
So people will be watching y'all probably from national.
Now on, it'll be on YouTube also.
You got to play it.
Now on.
And I don't have questions or whatnot.
Guys, we got